Big news in Miami. The Dolphins start their next phase. Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb among the players that are out in Miami. Good morning, Jeremy and Joe, and we welcome in on the Western Hotline our good buddy Marcel Louis-Jacques, who on short notice, we sent him a text, and he was happy, maybe not happy to join us. He said yes, either way. Good morning, Marcel. Always good to talk to you.
I was about to say, he said yes at least.
Yeah.
No, man, always happy to talk to you guys, man. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, so Marcel, how shocking is any of what happened yesterday for the Dolphins? Big names on the move.
I don't know that it was shocking per se when you look at, you look at the reasons why. It was kind of like a surprise, the timing of it, one after another like that. But especially in Tyreek Hill's case, this is something I think even his own team was kind of either bracing for, if not like outright preparing and expecting as soon as John Eric Sullivan was hired. There's a few reasons, right? There's the financial reason. He was a $51 million cap hit. No more guaranteed money, but they can still save $23 million by releasing him immediately. The health, he says he's going to be ready to play in 2026, but that dislocated knee, that was a serious, gruesome knee injury. That's tough for anybody to come back from, and that also applies to a 31-year-old receiver whose game is predicated on his ability to get in and out of breaks quickly. And then the production has waned. And, some of that is obviously the injury. Some of that is the uneven quarterback play. But I'm less inclined to give Tyreek Hill a pass for bad QB play because Tyreek Hill once looked me in my eyes and told me I can put up numbers with you at quarterback. So when you say that, you don't get the excuse of, well, Tua stunk for 2 years. Or, well, you had to play with Skylar Thompson. Oh, you had to play with Tyler Huntley. Like, that doesn't work anymore. So, all that combined with the new general manager trying to put his own stamp on the team and build a new culture, like, it made sense. It made sense, and it's something that at least everybody down here, we were kind of expecting as soon as he was carted off the field. Matter of fact, there are people, I won't name names because I'll let him take his own victory lap on his time. There are people who have been saying for probably about 2 years now that Tyreek should be traded, and he looks pretty clairvoyant now in hindsight.
Do you think they would have moved on given what they're doing, even if he hadn't been hurt? I
do, yeah. Unless somehow he bounced back to get another 1,700-yard season.
Right.
Especially it's a new regime. And I wrote this yesterday, right? So John Eric Sullivan is a huge believer. If you've been paying attention to anything he said, huge believer in the draft, develop, re-sign model. And Tyreek's presence on the roster is sort of like the antithesis of that belief because he was highly productive those first 2 years, but he also cost a first-round pick, a second-round pick, 2 fourth rounds. You know what I'm saying? So, and Bradley Chubb as well. It hampered their ability to build through the draft. So when you have back-to-back classes with 4 draft picks in each of them, and exactly one of those picks has turned out to be a player. If you're the Dolphins, thank God for Devon Achane, because if you didn't hit on that, that is 2 drafts wasted where you have no players providing any depth or production. It's no wonder this is one of the thinnest rosters in the NFL right now. Because you have to build through the draft and supplement through free agency. So, obviously the draft picks that's a sunk cost at this point, but Sullivan kind of sending the message and hitting the reset button just on the culture, the cultural aspect of rebuilding this team. So I understood. It was just it was a lot going on. I was on the phone with the team source about James Daniels, after the Bradley Chubb news had already come out. And they were pretty short with me. Their answers were pretty short with me. So, I joked. I was like, what, you're not happy to talk to me? Are you busy or something? And they're like, yeah, you should probably stay by your phone today.
Yeah.
So, okay. And about 90 seconds later, Tyreek news came out.
Yeah. Of the 3 players, who's got the most left?
Out of the 3 players, that's tough to say. I think Bradley Chubb was still productive last year, and the sack numbers don't jump out to you, but 8.5 sacks is still a pretty decent season. It's not for somebody with a $31 million cap hit this year, right, but it's a decent season considering he was double teamed on, I think, like 26% of his rushes, and no other Dolphins player, like every other Dolphins player, was allergic to the quarterback until like week 9 when Zach Sealer started warming up or started getting loose. But no pass rusher, no edge rusher was even remotely close to being impactful for Miami last season, other than Bradley Chubb. I think that was more of a financial standpoint, because from a cultural standpoint, this is a guy in the locker room that you can build around. I was probably more surprised about Chubb than Tyreek, but again, financially, it makes sense. But it's still James Daniels, I think, is the youngest of the three, or might be the youngest of the three. But he's 2 years removed from an Achilles injury. He's now a year removed from a season-ending pec injury. I don't see how anybody trusts that.
Yeah. I mean, all three positions, Marcel Louis-Jacques joining us on the Western Hotline on the Dolphins. All three positions are positions the Bills could, of course, be interested in it. Guard, they're going to maybe lose their guard in David Edwards. And at receiver, we're always talking about that. But Chubb, you mentioned, guy you can build around, spent time in the Vance Joseph defense in Denver. And, here we have a Denver disciple in Jim Leonard. So with Chubb, you think in the right scenario, it might be a good idea?
Yeah, I do. I think football is funny, though, right? Because 3 years ago, fans up there were making fun of him for the emoji shirt, mm-hmm. And now it's well, can we use them actually?
That's right. That's right.
Football is so fickle. I saw a Reddit post. I still dabble every now and then on the Bills subreddit, and I saw somebody say don't even think about it with Tyreek Hill, and that would be an incredible heel turn for Bills fans to go from how they have been, how they have felt about Tyreek Hill over the past, let's call it 7 years, to saying, oh, well, actually it might work for us.
Yeah.
But I think Bradley Chubb, again, I think any team that can sign Bradley Chubb should probably sign Bradley Chubb. That was one of my favorite players to cover over the past few years. He won our Media Good Guy Award this past year. Very consistent presence, win or lose, good game, bad game, 2 sacks, no sacks. You could always rely on Bradley to comment and speak, and we appreciate that from our job's perspective.
Marcel, how much further do you think they'll go? Will they go into potentially trading guys that might have value? Waddle specifically, I want to ask you about, because there were rumors about him here at the trade deadline. And then probably less on the Bills, but would they think about trading Achane, given that he's in the final year of his deal, or is he so good and young enough that they would just want to pay him?
That one's tough, because even finding a trade partner for Devon Achane, the value is going to be hit. The trade value is going to take a hit because of what you just said. Whoever trades for him is going to have to pay him. And because of that, you're not going to trade top dollar for the right to pay him. It's more valuable if he's already under contract. So that one's going to be hard. Jalen Waddle, I think, is probably their most valuable trade asset right now, although it kind of tasted like vinegar, speaking about guys in terms of their trade value, but just from the business perspective. They could have had a first-round pick for Waddle from the Bills if they traded him this offseason. It wouldn't be till next year's draft, but somebody wanted to trade a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle at the very least. I don't see that happening within the division. I honestly, I think that's dumb, and I don't do a lot of criticizing personnel moves publicly. If they trade Jalen Waddle to the Bills, don't get mad at me, Bills fans, but I will call that move out with the impunity if it happens. I think that is dumb. I think you're helping a division rival extend its gap, already sizable gap, over you. I don't care how long you plan on being bad for. Yeah. The plan should never to be bad. However bad you're going to be, you can't help division rivals get better. It's bad business. But I don't run an NFL team.
To that point,
I hate to dash people's hopes in Buffalo.
No, it's okay.
That would be an all-time dumb move for the Dolphins to do.
To that point, we've been talking about this morning. A bit of a Bills model if they wanted it, and you don't have to make this about trading with the Bills. You think Miami could be a candidate to get out of 11 in the interest of getting 2027 capital? The Bills did that with the Mahomes trade down. They go out, they get Tre'Davious White, and they add a first the following year when they're planning to trade up and get their quarterback. And this year's quarterback class versus next year's quarterback class, could Miami be a candidate with a brand new regime to do something exactly like that?
it's not an awful idea because I think right now there's so many holes on the roster that like there's not like one single player at their current draft position where it's like we have to get this guy right now. But like they can trade down and grab an edge rusher, they can grab a corner, they can grab a receiver, they can grab a lineman. Like there's a lot of different places that they can go. They need just talent and depth on this team right now. So I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. The quarterback class next year is obviously supposed to be way better, but I mean, this year's quarterback class was supposed to be really good too. So it's you got to be careful when planning that far in the future, but don't get it twisted. They are firmly in the Arch Manning hunt right now.
Yeah.
I don't think this team is tanking, so I'm not going to say that they're tanking. They are rebuilding, but by nature of a rebuild, yeah, they're in play for Arch, man.
Yeah, and there are like 6 other guys that have been talked about as potential first next year. A couple of them were maybe going to come out this year, which is why it's deeper. And the Jets are in the division, and they're probably in the same race, which is funny that the two teams, would you even say like the two teams that maybe are most likely in the league to get Manning next year might be both in the AFC East?
Yeah, and that's the problem because the Jets have a lot more draft capital at their disposal than Miami. I think they got a couple first rounders next year by virtue of a pretty successful fire sale they had this season.
Yeah,
that's gonna be worse than the Jets.
Last thing for me quickly, Marcel. What do you think happens with Tua? Will they find a trade partner? Is there any chance he's back there this year?
I actually saw like an interesting theory about the Titans last night. And I can't say that this is true at all or that this is even in the works, but the Titans have so much cap space that they could do something that is essentially called buying a draft pick. They can go buy a draft pick. So you trade for Tua. Miami sweetens the pot with a, third round pick, give or take. You have the space to eat that cap hit from Tua. He is no threat to take over for Cam Ward, but he gives you a starter quality backup if Cam Ward does get hurt, and you get an extra draft pick to build out of it. Like I don't think it's the worst idea in the world, but I do think they try to trade Tua. I don't think there's a lot of scenarios out there that make sense to grab him, especially if the world knows that they want to get rid of Tua. But I don't see a world where he's Miami's starting quarterback next season. There's just the non-committal language. It kind of tells you everything you need to know here. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I don't even think it's going to be Malik Willis, despite all these reports. The money's a little tight down here, and I think Willis can command a good amount of it. But no, I don't think that he's the Dolphins quarterback. I think he's playing his football elsewhere in the fall.
All right. Marcel Louis-Jacques on the Western Hotline. Marcel, thanks so much on short notice, and thanks for all the info.
Of course, man. Anytime.
All right. Marcel Louis-Jacques of ESPN on the Dolphins